Hi, Linda. Welcome.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. It's a great day. I didn't get to see the eclipse, but it was lovely today, weather-wise.
I got a picture of it, uh, obviously from not from our side of the United States, but for those that did get to see it, it looked pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. Annabelle. You could all ignore the message I'm putting in the chat. I'm just disabling the AI note taker. Hello, Femi. Hello, everyone. We'll get started in a minute or two. Letting everybody join.
It's 5, so we can go ahead and first off, hi everyone, welcome and thank you for attending today's meeting. To ensure that everyone is able to access today's meeting, we're going to go ahead and take a moment to review interpretation instructions on Zoom. I'm going to pass it on to Lingüística to review these instructions in Spanish.
Thank you. Buenas tardes. El día de hoy tenemos disponible el servicio de interpretación para aquellas personas que lo requieran. Si se están conectando desde una computadora, en la parte abajo del menú de Zoom van a ver un icono que parece un mundo que dice interpretación. Pueden hacer clic ahí y luego seleccionan español y silenciar el audio original para que puedan escuchar la interpretación del inglés al español. Y si se están conectando desde una tableta o desde un dispositivo móvil, tienen que tocar su pantalla. Seleccionamos los 3 puntos que dice más y luego interpretación de idiomas o interpretación. Seleccionamos nuevamente español y silenciar el audio original. Y al terminar, la opción de finalizado, terminado o listo. Ahora voy a dar las mismas instrucciones, pero en inglés. Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll have interpretation available for those who may need it. If you're joining from a computer, at the bottom of the Zoom menu, you will see a word-like icon that says interpretation or language interpretation. You can select it and then select English. And if you are joining from a tablet or your mobile phone, you can tap your screen, select the 3 dots, select language interpretation, select English, and then finish or done. Thank you. Gracias.
Thank you so much, Diana. Before we continue, I'd like to pause. Having trouble connecting to the correct.
Hi, Vanessa. This is Stephanie. I'm sorry, your audio is cutting out a lot. I can't hear you.
Oh, that's English or Spanish.
Oh,
Let me see. Can you hear me now? Is it any better?
We could hear you, it was just cutting in and out. So keep talking and I'm gonna wave my hands wildly if that happens again.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Diana. And sorry about that. So as I was saying, we're going to take a moment to pause and make sure that everyone is in the correct channel. If you have any trouble connecting to the correct channel, please feel free to let us know. You can either raise your hand or you can comment in the chat, and we'll gladly assist you to make sure that you are in the correct channel. So I'm going to pause for a minute in case folks are having trouble with that before I move on. All right, not seeing anything in the chat and not seeing any hands raised on my end. So I'm going to go ahead and continue. It seems no. All
Vanessa,
right.
The
So
bouncy,
good evening,
sorry, you're doing the bouncy thingy. I'm wondering, Vanessa, if you call in, it seems like your internet might not be great.
yeah, and I agree with I think Tanya or someone just put in the chat maybe to turn off your camera. We
Oh,
we still want to
Okay.
see you, but I think maybe if we can get good audio,
That's true.
that'll be priority.
No problem.
Yeah,
Happy to do that.
Yeah, try it with your camera off, Monet, and then if not, I could do it while you call in.
Can you hear me now? Is this any better?
Yeah,
Okay.
especially if you talk slowly.
Okay, thank you so much. Sorry about that, everyone. So once again, good evening. Welcome to our April Shafter Community Steering Committee meeting. My name is Vanessa Gomez, and I will be co-facilitating today's meeting with my colleague, Dr. Diana McDonald, and we are joined today by Stephanie Ng from the Air District, as well as Rocio Calderon, also from the Air District. I wanted to share how wonderful it was to see you all in person last month, and we really hope that you found March's meeting engaging and meaningful. We're really excited that folks were able to participate in many important discussions in person and looking forward to continuing some of those discussions from the last CSC meeting tonight. Before we kick off today's meeting, there are some housekeeping items that we'd like to review. These are familiar to many of you, but we think it's Diana and I are available to help with technical support and to keep track of the action items throughout today's meeting. So please don't hesitate to reach out to our team with any questions via the chat if you have them. We appreciate your ongoing commitment and your engagement in this process, and it is because of you that your community will be able to develop and implement new strategies to monitor air quality and help reduce health impacts in Shafter. To help promote community participation during today's meeting, we will be facilitating today's meeting with our virtual meeting agreements as a guide, and we invite you to review the agreements and jump into the conversation, keeping these in mind as well. As you know, agenda topics are a direct representation of the point you would like to add agenda items. We encourage you to share ideas here or during our agenda setting meetings. Today's agenda topics are designed to provide updates on action items from previous CSC meetings, hear updates on SERP implementation, share information on Shafter's pesticide monitoring, and learn about CARB's Community Air Protection Evaluation Program. These meetings are designed to ensure that CSC members are engaged in part of the decision-making process for AB617 implementation. We also have a specific place on the agenda at the very end of the meeting for public comment. And so if you're a public member, we invite you to raise your questions as you have them, and we will include them as they fit into the agenda. Let's go ahead and kick off today's meeting with welcoming remarks from Stephanie.
Thanks so much, Vanessa. Good evening, everyone. And it's so nice to see you. I can't believe it's been a full month since we met in person. Like Vanessa shared, I think the meeting, the in-person meeting was just so energizing, and I appreciated everyone for participating. Really a main takeaway I got out of that meeting is just that folks are so excited and eager to get this, the funding that we have in our SERP out into the community, into projects that really benefit
Y en los
residents.
proyectos,
Oops,
I believe interpretation was turned off.
I think we, yeah.
Yes.
See,
It looks
Vanessa,
like
do you know what happened to interpretation?
It should work now. Yeah, I think there was a, an
I think we're having
error
a few audio issues,
and it
Vanessa,
should
from you,
work
but
now.
I think it's back on. And so everyone will just need to select your interpretation channel again.
Yeah, and can we just take a minute just to make sure that everybody is on the right channel and everybody can raise your hand or unmute and say something if you don't feel like you're in the right channel. We can figure that out. Sorry about that. See, we were so excited to be in person that we forgot all the Zoom stuff. We're just like, forget it, in person. Okay, sorry, Stephanie. Back to you.
Thanks, Diana. No, I just want to, I'll wrap up by saying, I think the main takeaway I heard from the meeting is just that folks are really excited to get kind of this funding and projects into the community. And so we'll plan to kind of follow up on that in-person meeting today by hearing some last updates about some of the projects that we're working on that we heard in the in-person meeting. And we also so appreciate DPR, the Department of Pesticide Regulation, for being here to provide an update to folks based on a request that we got at an agenda setting meeting. So looking forward to tonight's meeting, and I will pass it back to the Harder team.
Great, thanks, Stephanie. At this point, I'd like to transition us to our review of the action item tracker. To support transportations, our team tracks action items during these meetings, and the air district supports reporting and accountability.
Vanessa, I
Today,
interrupt you. I think
Azura provides updates.
Vanessa, I'm gonna
Yes.
interrupt you and call it audible to like use a sports metaphor. I think I should do this part. It's really tough to hear you, but I'm afraid if you get out and back in, since you're the host, it's gonna mess up the interpretation. So I'm happy to do this part to basically pass it to Rocio to talk about the action items, and then maybe later on we can see if your connection is better.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry about all that, everybody. Yeah, so as Vanessa was saying, every meeting we write down action items as you're listening to the presentations to help with accountability and transparency. And so I'm going to pass it to Rocio to go over the action items from the last meeting.
Thank you, Diana. This is Rocio. Good evening, everyone. I just want to quickly echo what Steph, Vanessa, and Diana were saying. It was so great to see everyone in last month's in-person CSC meeting, and I look forward to the next one that we have. And then I'll go ahead and start sharing my screen for the action items. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Yes. Thank you. So I'll go ahead and start with the in-progress action items that we have. So the action item is for the district to share a copy of the original AB617 research study findings from the UC Davis team. And so we went ahead and reached out to them. And once we receive the study findings, we'll make sure to circle back and share that with the CSC. Moving on to the completed action items. So the action item is for the City of Shafter to update the CSC on next steps for the bike path project, including all of the great suggestions that were that came from the last in-person meeting. And so we do have an update on the bike path project in today's meeting. So Stephanie will go over this and the presentation later on. Moving on to the next completed action item for the district to share with the CSC a copy of the bike path map from the City of Shafter's project. And so we went ahead and shared this with the CSC member who requested to receive the bike path map. And then I also went ahead and linked it here from a previous presentation. But if anyone here would like to receive a hard copy of this map, please just let us know and I can go ahead and send that out to you via mail. Moving on to the next action item. So this action item has a few comments on here, including suggestions to provide more funds to the vegetative barriers and air filters, as well as increasing the specificity of air monitoring data and also shortening the survey that was mentioned at table 4, which was the UC Davis AB617 research table. So then with that, we are happy to discuss any funding that needs to be reallocated with the CSC. At this time, for the two measures that were brought up, the vegetative barriers and the clean air rooms program currently still has lots of funding left. So if we ever need to reallocate those funds, we'll make sure to bring that with the CSC. And then we also plan to have an air monitoring update in an upcoming CSC meeting. And we also went ahead and shared the feedback that the CSC had to the UC Davis team, so they can take that into consideration. And I can pause right here as I see, Linda, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to go back to that last action item. I don't think it would have been vegetative barriers since we have a lot of funding in there. Could it possibly be for urban greening? Because that only had 50,000. And I'm sure that's going to get used up fairly quickly, just because you had mentioned it was vegetative barrier and air filter. And I believe those two are both really close in the end of their funding.
Yeah, you have a good point. I actually wasn't at this table, so I'm wondering if I can get back with the team just to confirm that it was the urban greening measure that they were talking about and not the vegetative barriers.
Yeah, because there was someone at that table. I feel like it could have been at the discussion I was in. She was from the Fresno CSC, and I believe she was mentioning that they got $1 million towards their their urban greening. So that's maybe where the conversation stemmed from.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, we can look into this and just, like I said, make sure that we are getting the right action item was captured.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go ahead and move on to the next action item. So, okay, the next couple of action items are actually questions from the car share program. So there was lots of great feedback and comments at the last CSC meeting. And we're happy that we have MioCar joining us today. And so they're actually going to go over all the questions and answers later on in today's meeting. And then just as a reminder, we do capture all of the answers to the action items, and they're tracked in the tracker here. So this is always available to you on the community webpage. And then with that, I just have one more action item in the ongoing section. So the City of Shafter to provide updates to the CSC as the design progresses. And so the district will make sure to continue working with the City of Shafter to bring any updates to the CSC. And that is the end of the action items. I'm happy to take any more questions or comments. Don't see any hands raised or anything in the chat, so I can pass it back to Diana. Thank you.
Thank you, Rocio. And extra credit, I think tracking action items was extra special since we were all in person and writing actually in real time. So thank you very much for tracking those and updating us. I'm now going to go to our next agenda item, which is the CERT measure implementation updates. And their district is going to review, as Rocio said, some high-level updates about 3 of the specific measures that we all talked about in our in-person meeting last month. I was going to say last week. It seems like it was recently, last month. So the bike lane project, the expanded paving project at La Colonia, and the car share program. And so the Air District really considered all of the feedback that you all provided at the different tables last month. And so this is an effort to keep the conversation going and revisit these topics and give some updates on the things that we all talked about. As always, we encourage you to ask questions as folks are presenting by either raising your hand or putting things in the chat. Steph, do you have a preference for if you want to wait till the end of each section to take questions, or if you want to take questions as you go?
This is Stephanie. I think I'll take questions. There's kind of 3 main sections in this presentation. I'll go through the slides and then pause for questions after each section.
Great. So take it away, Stephanie. Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. This is Stephanie again. And like Rocio mentioned, and kind of all the folks that have kind of set up this meeting mentioned, we got some really great feedback and questions from the in-person meeting. And really just, I think, a desire and interest for these projects getting implemented in the community. And so what you'll see today, it'll be very familiar because we're bringing back 3 items from the in-person meeting. And so I'll kind of high level talk about the bike lane project, the updated paving project, and then the car share project. And something that I do want to leave time for is we actually have some folks here from MioCar based on the questions that we got at the car share table. We just recognized that folks had a lot of questions that were related to the implementation of that program. And so we're really excited. We have Gloria and Fernando here joining us from MioCar. So once I get through some of these slides, we'll actually have a quick Q&A with MioCar to answer some of those questions. So I'm going to share my screen. Can everyone see those slides? Perfect. Again, like I mentioned, we'll talk about the bike lane project, the La Colonia paving project, and then wrap it up discussing our car share program. This is just a high-level slide talking about our sidewalk, bike lanes, and paving CERT measure. I think as lots of folks know on this call, we have kind of allocated through your CERP $3.8 million for these projects. We're excited because we have 2 projects that are already kind of the CSC has supported, one with the city of Shafter on State Route 43, and another with Kern County in La Colonia, which I have an update on as well. And we have a remaining $1.3 million for priority projects, including bike lane projects. And so as folks might remember, we brought it at this in-person meeting that we just had, a project from the city of Shafter. And really the goal of this project is to install bike lanes in the community along Lerdo Highway and adjacent avenues, with the goal of really linking a lot of really major parts of downtown Shafter. So schools, parks, different transit centers, and downtown businesses. As you can see here, on this map on the right, this orange dotted line is kind of outlines where the bike lanes would be. And kind of the boxes here highlight a lot of the different schools. So again, it kind of crosses and is near a lot of major schools like Richland, Shafter High School, different parks, different businesses. And so we're really excited to see kind of that connectivity and for folks to have more options in the community to travel without their their personal vehicles. And so at this table, so appreciate Mike and Steve from the city of Shafter being there to answer questions. Some of the things that we heard at this table is definitely a lot of great feedback on different features to consider for making the bike lane successful, such as I know that there was some interest in some really cool technology that makes sure that lights change for cyclists. Also making sure there's adequate lighting along these bike lanes. And some requests that we heard was to continue to keep the CSC updated during the design phase of the project, and then also impacts from other projects that are going on in the community. For example, I know that high-speed rail came up a lot, and just remembering to keep the CSC updated on progress of the project and then other things that are going on in the community. And so really some next steps for this project this is a project that we will seek district governing board approval for. And then, of course, to contract with the city of Shafter to be able to do work on this project. And so I'm going to pause here and I'm happy to take any questions. I do see, maybe I'll just read the one that came up in the chat that Bianca is asking if we can have this presentation sent out to residents. And so we can send this, follow up with this meeting with sending it out to folks. And then I see Linda's hand.
Thank you, Stephanie. I just wanted to say thank you to the city of Shafter and to you guys. This is a project that I've been wanting to see to fruition, and I'm so excited to see what's been done. I love the fact that we're going to link the schools and the parks. Just something to throw out there. We are getting a new park. I believe it's off of Fresno, and it was hard to see on the map. Is there, since we're going to put sidewalks up from Apple Market at 43, is there a possibility of maybe having a bike lane up that way as well, just since we're already going to be in there doing construction to link that last park into the rest of this? One other one I want to throw out there is Richland Chevrolet said that they back in the past would do a station too, where they could have a refill station and maybe somewhere to sit. So I can put you in touch with them. And then the other thing that I've heard from a lot of the folks that bike in town is they get discouraged on some of the roadways because of the debris that piles up. And so I'm wondering, with this extra funding, can we work with the city of Shafter to have some of the funding keep that area clean for them to use the bike lanes? That was just a comment I heard from 2 or 3 cyclists, that it gets like rubble and things and then it pops their tires because I think they're on road bikes. I'm not a biker, but maybe we could ask someone about that and just seeing if we can use some of that extra funding to use the street sweeper or something to help keep it clean. And that was all of my comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda, for all those suggestions. Maybe for that, sorry, kind of taking notes. And so I do maybe have a response for the last question. Maybe we'll work our way up to it. The funding that is for this measure is meant to kind of for the installation of bike lanes and really those kind of to be able to reduce those vehicle miles traveled. That's where the emission reductions come in and why we're able to support projects like that. But I also don't know. I don't know, Mike, if you have any thoughts, or maybe we can, if it not Mike at the city of, someone else at the city of Shafter, we can maybe coordinate with and partner to see about kind of the concerns regarding the debris along the bike lanes.
Maybe just more of a maintenance issue.
Yeah.
Just to make sure that people keep using these lanes. That was a comment. Thank you.
Thanks, Linda. And I do know this project, and as Mike has kind of described it in the past, it is a scalable project. And so I've written that suggestion down of the park at Fresno. And I know that, you know, we have Mike and Steve here as well. And then Linda, you'll have to remind me. I think you had one last comment in there or question.
Oh, I'll put you in touch with the folks at Richland's.
Oh, yes.
If you have maybe another stop there. This was a while back that they offered, so I'll reach back out because they had said maybe like a water station or a little shade structure or something like that. So I'll see if that's still something that they're willing to do, because they're on the way. They're not too far from the high school.
That's awesome. Thank you, Linda.
For Steph.
Not then, oh, hello. If not, then I will continue moving us forward. If anyone thinks of a bike lane question that they have throughout the meeting, though, feel free to ask it in the chat, or we can come back to it. So I'm going to transition to us to this. This is actually the second table, or one of the stations that we had again at the in-person meeting, and this is regarding the La Colonia paving project, and an update, a really exciting update actually that we have from Kern County, and I'll just kind of preview. I know a lot of folks heard this at the station, but I'll kind of high level preview what was discussed in case you weren't at the meeting. During the design phase of the project, that Kern County is kind of going through the design phase for this. And through that phase, engineers did recommend expanding the current project that we have now that the CSC has already supported to include an additional portion on Mantle Avenue, to essentially pave what is on Mantle a half road. So that's about 14 feet of road right there. To kind of expand the project, add an additional 6 feet to make it a full-size road at 20 feet wide. So through that project, it would be about an additional 1,000 feet of length. And then also another goal in the project is to add a feature to increase the drainage in that area. You can kind of see a picture here to the right. I know it's a little bit smaller, but as you can see, after some rain, it looks like there's some puddles and some water that kind of gets stuck there. So the goal is also to add some drainage. And the Kern County did a calculation and anticipates that there to be 0.32 kilograms per day reductions of PM. And again, on the right-hand side, this is the project that we've kind of been discussing this whole time that the CSC has supported. It's along several streets in the La Colonia area. And what would be the update or addition to this project, again, is to pave that half road on Mantle Avenue to reduce dust, to help increase drainage, and also to allow for more room for vehicles to pass through. And so the additional cost that Kern County has estimated for this is just under $600,000. And so the final cost of the total La Colonia project would be about 2.6 million. We've discussed this in the past that we do have funding in the locomotive measure that we can kind of reallocate to other measures where we see need. And so this is where we could, where there is available funding to help support expanding this project. And I'll just discuss some kind of updates for the project. Again, this is similar to the bike lane project. This is something that we take to our governing board, and we anticipate taking this sometime in April. And then the design services for this project, we anticipate to be done by the fall of this year, with Kern County awarding a construction contract in the spring of 25, and then to begin construction next summer. Anticipating this takes about 4 to 6 months to complete. And I know folks heard this last month and kind of had some great feedback and questions. And overall from that meeting, we heard lots of support for this project. But I'm going to pause here and see if there's any other questions that folks might have or any other feedback that they wanted to share.
So your hand raised, Bianca?
Yes, I'm not sure if Yolanda is in the call, but when we spoke to in person, she was mentioning also to include more fund. If there's some more funding, she would like to do connect La Colonia with Cherokee Strip, which includes a local market. I'm not sure if she's in the call or not, but I know she wanted to request more funding to help improve the pavement in that area, and to connect more, to have the connection also for children that have to get the bus to the Cherokee Strip. I'm not sure if the Air District received that, or would it be for the upcoming meeting. I know that we do have limited time, but I would like to address that also.
This is Stephanie. Thanks, Bianca, for your question. Yolanda's not here, but I know that her team is here. Although, you know, I think I'm not sure if this is something her team would be aware of yet. And so we're happy to follow up. Will you say the name of that street again, Yolanda? Or sorry, Bianca?
Can you hear me? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I believe it's Burbank. It's connecting La Colonia with Cherokee Strip, but the street itself is called Burbank.
Thanks, Bianca. I see Jenny unmuted though, so go ahead, Jenny.
Yes, I can check with Yolanda and find out, and then we can report that back to you. So you're saying that she wanted to connect the pavement, more improvement from the La Colonia to Burbank? Is that correct?
Yes, that was one
Okay.
of the next project the county wanted to do for La Colonia, and it would include the AB617 funding, and
Okay.
it would help connection for like the bus stop, and also for residents from La Colonia being able to access the local market in the area and the restaurant that's the red wagon.
Okay. Okay, I've made these notes and I will present it to her, and then I'll have her reach out to the board. And thank you for your comment. I wasn't aware of that.
See your hand.
Bianca, do you want to maybe specify to the north side of that road? Because aren't there some homes there behind that market? For folks to walk on? Because I think on the south side, it's trees, isn't it?
Yes, it would be connecting. I believe there's like 3 homes on the south side. North side, it is more homes. From the Burbank, it's on the northern side. There's more homes in that area, but I'm not sure how much of the street Yolanda wanted to add, but she did wanted to include road paving to connect both of the communities. That was her comment of connecting communities together, especially when children have to walk to the market, so they have a clear path, not walk on the dirt and be at risk to be run over.
Yeah, so I think that the air board, you might want to look at the north side just because there are homes there, and the market that they're talking about is on the north side. At Cherokee Strip, because there's buses, I believe, that pick up at the Colony, right, Bianca, for Richland, and then I believe there's buses that pick up at Cherokee Strip. Normally they don't have to walk across, but Cherokee Strip, I mean, that's a 2-lane road that is has a lot of fast traffic, and it actually slopes down. So if there is extra funding, that area it does need some help. The same thing with Smith's Corner, if you guys happen to look at that. Is anyone from the county on Public Works?
Yes. We're taking notes on just taking notes and such too. These are good concerns and stuff too. So that's one of the reasons why, because
Okay, Smith's Corner doesn't have any sidewalks either, and they've got markets. So if you could maybe take a look there, because they're in need as well.
Okay, yes, we've noted that down, and we'll add it to discuss with Yolanda. And I know there's some we'll have to research right away, and some other factors. But yes, we've included that, and then once we get an update, we can provide that back.
Yeah, look at it up Shafter Avenue into like in the streets that branch off.
Okay,
It's Smith, please. Thank
of
you.
course. And you said the north side, correct?
With what Bianca was discussing, I
Mhm.
believe that there's more homes on the north side, because the south side, I believe, is Orchard. Because they
Okay.
just did out that not that long ago, and I think it's new trees, so I don't know if you're gonna be able to get access on that side.
Okay,
As you-
we'll research it, and I'll add it to our notes, and we'll discuss it with Yolanda, and then we'll provide feedback to the team.
Thank you so much.
Of course, thank you.
Questions for Steph? Bianca.
I agree what Linda was mentioning. I do have a question for the air district. If we need to pull more funding from like the what's it called? The big rig. I call it the big rig, but I'm not sure if it's a diesel truck program. I know it's not been being used. If we need more funding, are we able to reallocate those fundings for like the road paving, for the the programs, the projects that Linda and myself were requesting. I know La Colonia, or I saw Dora right now in the meeting, but I don't know if she wants to speak on it. But I do see that there's a concern, and I do have some residents that are open to reallocate those funding.
Thanks, Bianca, for your question. And then maybe to Linda's question in the chat, you know, we have always, it is our commitment to continue to work with you all to kind of assess where reallocation is needed. And so I know that, you know, I think a lot of us at the in-person meeting saw that in action with the lawn and garden measure. And so we definitely can consider that and work with the committee on it. I think first steps, though, is we will want to reach out to kind of Yolanda's team in Kern County to see, of course, where they are with some of these projects. And kind of capacity to handle kind of these types of projects. Like Jenny mentioned, there is a very, I'm not really, you know, I'm not the public works kind of person, but I know that there's a lot of steps to really see whether or not projects are feasible. And so we'll definitely reach out to Kern County and Yolanda's team up to follow up about some of these suggestions. But yes, overall, we are committed to working with the committee when we need to reallocate funds. Because I think, I mean, we've discussed it here, but a few times. We want to make sure, though, that we are continuing where we see that need to bring those decisions back to this committee for sure.
And Steph, I believe you had one more update in this section.
Yes, I do, which I'm going to actually transition us over to the car share item. I'm going to talk about this. I know there are a lot of words on this slide, but I'm going to talk about this high level because I think the highlight here is we do have MioCar here today to answer questions. So I want to leave time for them because they know their projects best. But I'll just remind folks that we do have in the SERP 500,000 allocated to kick off a car share program. We did release what's called a request for proposal or RFP to seek out a group to do this kind of work in the Shafter community. And we did have one applicant apply, MioCar. And in their proposal, these are just kind of high level details about the proposal. Again, we'll get into more details with MioCar, but it's for 2 to 3 zero emission or plug-in hybrid vehicles. Along with this measure, there's lots of things that are kind of included in this proposed budget, including the infrastructure to charge those vehicles. There's also kind of other miscellaneous things that need to happen in order to kick off a successful car share program, such as making sure there's insurance for the vehicles, to be able to maintain the vehicles, labor, construction, outreach. Again, I won't list all of them, but lots of different items that are required to be able to, again, maintain and have a really successful car share program in the community. And here are some the 2 proposed locations in their proposal. One is the County of Kern Administration Building, and the second is Stringham Park. And at the car share table, I know folks visited it, but some of the things that we heard were recommendations on conducting outreach and education for non-English speakers, which of course, as you saw earlier, that's one of the kind of buckets where there is funding that's eligible in that 500K to allow for good, successful outreach of the car share program. And at this table, I know there were just some really great questions about kind of the use, like how do you actually use a car share program? You know, how do you sign up? How it's going to roll out in the community, including kind of also things like how long can I use this? How far can this vehicle go? You know, can you get a car seat? Things like that. And so we, again, have MioCar here to answer your questions. But again, next steps for this project would be to contract with MioCar to be able to work on this project. And then, of course, we'll work with the CSC and MioCar to be able to conduct outreach and education to encourage the use of this program. And so right now, I'm actually going to stop here because, again, like I mentioned at the start of this presentation, we have Gloria and also Fernando here from MioCar. I just wanted to pass to them to introduce themselves. They have with them some of the questions that folks were asking at the last in-person meeting that they want to answer. But then also, if you all have any new questions that you've thought of, again, this is time that you have to ask MioCar. And so with that, I'll pass to Gloria.
Hello, good evening. My name is Gloria Huerta. I am the Chief Operating Officer of MioCar. And I'm real excited to be here. I grew up in Orosi. It's a rural unincorporated community in Tulare County, and that's where we initially launched MealCard back in 2019. I was a part of the project from the beginning, so we had community meetings in Dinuba and Bosco to come up with the name for the car share program. So MealCard is a play on play of the Spanglish of the San Joaquin Valley, and it came from those community groups. Our rates are $4 an hour, 35 for the day. It has stayed the same since 2019. And I will go briefly over some of the questions that were asked. So all of our vehicles are available to rent 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, if they are available, if nobody else has it reserved. If a location is fenced in or blocked, we normally require gate codes to make sure that everyone has access to the vehicle. So it will, the vehicle will not, it'll be available at all times if there is no current reservation. Residents would be able to make bookings 120 days in advance. So if you are using the service, you could download an app. It's called ZEV Co-op, Z-E-V Co-op, or you can go to our website, mealcard.org, and click to sign up. If you have any issues, you could contact us. We have 3 different numbers there. We are located in the Tulare County areas, as well as Richmond and Stockton. And I did want to say that we have a minimum booking time of 1 hour, maximum booking time of 24 hours per reservation. And this is because we're a community car share service. We're not a car rental. So we want to make sure that everybody has access to the vehicles when they need them. And typically people normally use the vehicles to go to doctor's appointments, take their kids to school, go grocery shopping, or take a family outing. We do not provide car seats. It is the expectation of our members to bring their own car seats. And that's for insurance liability purposes. And in terms of sites, the 2 sites that we proposed, we did work with an electrician to go do a site walkthrough. So we're open to getting community input on new locations, but we need to make sure that it is feasible to have the infrastructure there. The biggest barrier for us deploying vehicles is not having the infrastructure in place. So we want to make sure that wherever we have the vehicles, it'll be easily accessible for everyone, so that there's no delays with building out the infrastructure. I've been doing this for 5 years, and there's a location right now that we started looking at back in 2021, and we just signed an agreement for it. So unfortunately, we haven't launched in that particular location because of this. So I'm very happy to be here, and if you have any questions, Fernando and I would be more than happy to answer any of the questions you have.
Linda, I see your hand up.
Does anyone else want to go first? I know I've been asking a lot of questions. It's okay? Okay.
I say go for it. And if anybody, other people can think of their questions as Linda is talking.
So with the current funding that's available, I'm sorry, how long was the program going to last for? For the meal card?
I believe it's a 3-year, my apologies.
Contract, yes. Hi, Linda. This is David Lopez with the grants team. I know we've spoken in the past. Yes, the RFP and the project will be for a 3-year implementation. So.
Okay. And I'm just curious, the chargers that are going to be used at this site, because I'm assuming the cars are going to be on it most of the time, are those coming out of our SERP funding, or is that also inclusive in this RFP? And will they be left there after this program is done in 3 years for use?
Yes, and Stephanie, feel free to jump in if I say anything wrong. But no, the car sharing measure had $500,000 allocated to it, which included money for both vehicles and infrastructure. Of course, so those chargers will be in place for 3 years or throughout this period. And we, obviously our expectation is those chargers would continue to be used afterwards.
Okay, and then just things to keep in mind with the locations. I feel like both are good locations. Just one thing to throw out there. I know in the beginning we were trying to keep things by the Richland School District for the Healthy Start, and I believe the the name has changed and it's more over by the Golden Oak School. So Stringham Park might be an easier walk. Also, there's some apartments that are behind the youth center that also could probably use the Mio car and the chargers. So my vote would probably be for Stringham Park if possible. The other thing I just wanted to bring up, since we're talking about funding and whatnot, is there a good way to keep these cars secure? Do you have some type of fencing because of the theft that happens lately?
So I can more than happy to answer that question. In the 5 years that I've been doing this in different parts of California, we haven't really experienced vandalism, and for us, it's important to have the vehicles available. If it's not gated, that's like a lot of our locations are non-gated, and it's available for anyone to use. So if there are gates, we would have a gate code so that whenever a member shows up, they would open the app and the gate code would pop up. But we get the vandalism and theft questions a lot, and I think it's just because it is a community car share program. The community residents really value that and take care of the vehicle, and they're very quick to report if there's a flat tire or things like that. Anything that they notice in the vehicle, they report to us immediately. So we do plan on hiring a local staff person to manage the vehicle. So for us, it's very important to hire local residents to make sure that they're involved in the community, and also provide support if needed, because we do provide services 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So just this weekend, I was on call and I had to take care of some member issues in person. So we are very hands-on with all of our members, and they really do let us know if anything happens. And worst case scenario, we do have a way to track the vehicles and remotely provide support if anyone has issues accessing the vehicles.
Okay, thank you. And my last question, when you mentioned the cost, I just wanted to make sure that's all inclusive as far as the insurance and everything. There's no membership fee that a community member is going to have to pay annually or anything. It's just that flat rate you mentioned earlier, correct?
There is a one-time $20 membership processing fee, and that goes to processing the member's motor vehicle record. That automatically gets given back to them in 5 free hours of driving credit for their first trip once they complete an orientation with us. But there are no annual membership fees. And so it's $4 an hour, 35 for the day, not including the sales tax for Shafter. So sometimes it could range between $1 or $2 if it's a $35 dollar booking. And then what's included is maintenance, insurance, roadside assistance, and then the recharging, or if the person takes a long trip and they have to stop and fast charge at an EVgo location, that's included in their rate.
Okay, thank you so much.
Questions for Miocard? Also, feel free to put them in the chat.
This is Stephanie. I know we have a couple more minutes, and so maybe I'll just follow up with a question that I think there were some members that asked this. I was wondering, Gloria, can you talk about the difference of why you all are opting kind of for those level 2 chargers versus level 3 chargers?
Oh yes, my apologies. I forgot to discuss that. So typically level 3 chargers are a lot more expensive for the infrastructure, but for us, we normally have all of our vehicles deployed at level 2 chargers just because it charges the vehicle up to 100% and the costs remain lower for charging as opposed to having level 3 chargers. So if you only charge at level 3 chargers, it's only going to charge the vehicle up to 80%. And then there is battery degradation that takes place on the vehicle if it's only charged using a level 3 charger. So we want to make sure that the community assets stay there for a long period of time. And by assets, I mean the vehicles. We want to make sure that they have a healthy battery as opposed to, let's say we're 1 year in and with the only 80% charging, instead of getting 240 miles, now you're probably getting like 180. And then with battery degradation, it might be even lower to 150 miles. And I did see the question that came in, the time limit in the cars, minimum 1 hour booking, and then maximum 24 hours.
Your questions from Neocar.
I would like to mention that all of our members, once they apply through the app, basically we'll get the application in our end, and we'll basically walk them through the entire process from the beginning to the end. Before we could approve their application, we basically give all of our members an orientation, where we'll explain basically where to find the vehicles, how to charge the vehicles. We're going to walk them through the process on how to create bookings on the app as well. We'll explain to them how to lock and unlock the vehicles remotely through the app. And again, we'll give them a phone number that they could use to call if they have any issues with any one of their bookings as well.
Question in the chat. Would you all generally recommend level 2 chargers only for public lots?
We, as a car share company, for our operations, we prefer level 2s because that's like the home station of where the vehicle will be. As a non-Mio car, like from a different perspective, not Mio car lens, I'm a supporter of having both level 2 and level 3 chargers because if someone is low on the charging on the vehicle and they need to fast charge, it might just be it's a way faster for them to charge up to 80%. So level 2 charging, if you return a vehicle, let's say with 5 miles and it's 240 miles for a full charge, it normally takes anywhere between 4 to 6 hours to fully charge that vehicle up to 100%, as opposed to a level 3 charger, which yes, it charges up the vehicle to 80%, but it takes 45 minutes to an hour, hour and a half.
Well, thanks. This is Stephanie. Well, thanks, Gloria, and then both Fernando for answering all of those questions. Maybe just as next steps to the CSC, of course, we'll continue to bring updates on this project. I do think as we get much closer in this project, we can have Gloria and Fernando come back to us to talk much more in detail about how someone would actually participate. They could talk about the app a little bit, more about the cost. And I know they've even kind of volunteered to maybe even, maybe we can do a little session where an in-person session where we show CSC members like the vehicles and such. And so there's lots of, I think, opportunities for partnership and continued discussion here. But if there are no other questions, that actually wraps up our SERP update presentation. So I'm happy to pass it back to the Harder team.
For the Neocar folks for attending to give that was great. And thank you for addressing the questions that came up last month also. That was helpful. So now we're going to switch to the Department of Pesticide Regulation Monitoring Update agenda item. And we have about 35 minutes for this agenda item. The goal is to hear how DPR monitors pesticides in Shafter. And then they're also going to share some of their recent detection, pesticide detection data. So this is a presentation where the Spanish slides are separate. You know, sometimes like in the one we just had, the Spanish is in the same presentation. This one is in a separate one. So I put the link to that in the chat if you don't have that already and would like to see that. As the air district is presenting, there might be some technical language or some abbreviations that are not familiar to us, so feel free to raise your hand or put it in the chat if you would like the presenters to slow down or if you have a clarifying question. So I'm now going to pass it to the Department of Pesticide Regulation.
Yes, I'm going to be presenting today. I need share screen powers.
Okay, let's see.
Jimmy, this is Stephanie. I think you should just be able to share your
Yeah,
screen.
you should be able to do, yeah. Try it, and if it doesn't work, we could make you a co-host or something.
At the very bottom, yeah.
Oh,
perfect.
there you go. Yep, we can see your screen.
Okay. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Jimmy Nguyen. I am an environmental scientist for the Department of Pesticide Regulation. Today, we're going to be speaking about pesticide monitoring in Shafter. So for today's agenda, we're going to have some background information. We're going to talk about how DPR monitors pesticides, mitigation implementation, how does DPR use the data. We're going to have acute, subchronic, and chronic definitions. We're going to talk about the pesticides data, how to report pesticide incidents, and then DPR's next step with the community. And at the end, we're going to have some questions for, we're going to save some time for questions at the end. So a little background information. In 2011, the Department of Pesticide Regulation, DPR, implemented a multi-year statewide air monitoring network, AMN, to measure pesticide concentration in the ambient air in various California agricultural communities. In 2023, DPR monitored the air in the vicinities of 4 communities across California: Oxnard, Santa Maria, Shafter, and Watsonville. AMN objectives are to collect data that assists in assessing potential health risks, evaluating the effectiveness of existing mitigation measures, developing measures to mitigate risks, evaluating the effectiveness of regulatory requirements. So DPR's air program is responsible for assessing pesticide concentration in the air and mitigating adverse risks associated with pesticide applications. The air program collects weekly 24-hour air samples from several monitoring stations across California. In regards to Shafter, we are monitoring for 35 pesticides and 5 breakdown products. We have been monitoring in Shafter since 2011. So we've been here for 13 years, sampling weekly. So our monitoring site is located in Sequoia Elementary School. It's located in the back parking lot in the corner near the field. You'll see a fenced off area with the DPR sign, and that's where our equipment is stationed at. So how do we monitor? So we collect samples using pumps to trap air into canisters or sorbent tubes. So the picture on the right is our MET1 station. Basically, it's pumping air through those tubes, and any pesticides in the air gets trapped in those tubes. So after 24 hours, we collect the samples and we put them on dry ice to ensure no pesticide escapes. We then transport the samples to an analytical laboratory for analysis. The analysis and uploading the data can take anywhere from 6 to 9 months. So I previously stated that one of the objectives of the AMN is to collect data to evaluate the effectiveness of existing mitigation methods and measures, and to develop measures to mitigate risk. And basically, mitigation is just methods of reducing pesticide concentration in the air. Mitigations are in the form of buffer zones or setbacks, basically a set distance between the point of application and the bystanders / buildings. Changes to application methods, for example, requiring deeper injections of a pesticide. Basically, a deeper injection makes it less likely the pesticide to break through the soil and get into the air. Use limits, limits on what areas the pesticide can be used, when the pesticide can be used, and what regions the pesticide can be used. These mitigations are implemented via pesticide label changes, statewide regulations, and restricted material permits. So how does DPR use the data that we get? So DPR develops two kinds of health screening targets. The first one is screening levels, which are developed based on an early or preliminary assessment of possible health effects. Regulatory targets, which are established based on a complete assessment of possible health or environmental risk. The measured air concentrations are compared to these targets to assess possible exposures. So there's three types of exposures here: there's acute, subchronic, and chronic. In a later slide, I'm going to explain what those mean. But for now, I'm just going to continue on. So acute targets are 8 hours, 24 hours, or 72 hours. For subchronic targets, it's 4 weeks to 13 weeks. And for chronic targets, it's 1 year and more. And we look at all these targets, but for Shafter, we are mainly focusing on the chronic targets. As we've been in Shafter for 13 years now, we have multiple years of data to look at. If any of these values are exceeded, DPR conducts a detailed evaluation and determines if mitigation is needed. So acute, subchronic, and chronic. Acute is short-term, so these health effects are more severe and sudden in onset. This is usually based on short-term contact with the chemical. So for the examples I pull here, they're all about firefighters. So if a firefighter can experience carbon monoxide poisoning due to 20 minutes of intense smoke exposure. Subchronic / medium-term health effects, they develop over a month to 90 days. And an example of that would be smoke-induced bronchitis after 2 weeks of smoke exposure. Chronic or long-term, these are long years. This is based on continued or repeated contact with a chemical. Example would be black lung disease after a 35-year career of firefighting. And again, we look at all these health effects, but we're mainly looking at chronics for Shafter since we have been here for 13 years. So before we talk about the pesticide data, we need to talk about detection levels. So the infographic on the right is to help you visualize. So quantifiable detection, we can clearly see the pesticide, we know the concentration, the value is reliable to be used in data analysis. Trace detection, the pesticide is blurry, it's at a low level, we can't really use it as it's not reliable. And then non-detect is below the method detection limit. Basically, anything below that, we cannot see the concentration or know what it is. Only values in the quantifiable range, so the limit of quantification, can be used to be compared to screening levels and regulatory targets. So anything above the LOQ, can be compared to screening levels and regulatory targets. So for this table here, what is being shown is the amount of samples we analyzed in 2022 and 2023. Please note that 2023 Shafter data is only for January to June. As I previously stated, it takes 6 to 9 months to analyze and upload the data. So we're going to focus here on 2022 as that's a full year of sampling. So for 2022, we sampled for 2009 samples. We analyzed 2009 samples, sorry. 136 or 7% of that were quantifiable or trace detections, and 75 to 4% were quantifiable detections. So there were 6 pesticides that had quantifiable detections. So 1,3-dichloropropene, EPTC, fenpyroxamate, methyl bromide, MITC, pendimethylamine. And I'm going to focus on 1,3-D here because, again, we just released some regulations regarding 1,3-D. And so here what is being shown is that there were 27 quantifiable detections, and that represents 36% of all the detections of 1,3-D. And for 2023, there were 4 detections, and that represents 17% of all the detections of 1,3-D in 2023. So there's a lot of information on this. I'll try to explain it as best as I can. So what is showing is the highest measured concentration and the percent of screening level. The percent of screening level just means how close it is to our screening levels, basically. So for 1,3-D, for 24-hour acute, the highest concentration was 1.16, which is 2% of our screening level. For subchronic, which is 13 weeks for 1,3-D, instead of 4 weeks, it was 0.11, which is 4% of our screening level. For chronic or 1 year and above, it was 0.06, which is 3% of our screening level. So nothing in 2022 was higher than 5% of our screening level. I'm sorry, for 1,3-D. So in 2023, 1,3-D acute 24-hour concentration, the highest was 5.06, which is 9% of our screening level. For subchronic, which is 13 weeks for 1,3-D, it was 0.42, which is 14%. Chronic, 1 year and above, was 0.21, which is 11%. And again, this data is only for January to June. So we're going to talk about the potential acute health effects for these 3 chemical pesticides here. These pesticides are toxic air contaminants, and they're restricted material. So chlorpyrifos has a strong odor. It's irritating to the eyes, skin, nose, throat, and upper respiratory tract. Inhalation may cause vomiting. Eye irritation is the most sensitive effect. 1,3-D is irritating to the skin, eyes, mucous membranes. This can cause chest pain or breathing difficulties. MITC is irritating to the eyes, skin, lungs, and mucous membranes of the gastrointestinal tract. Respiratory symptoms include burning or irritation of the nose and throat, coughing, laryngitis, chest pain, and asymptomatic type response. Exposure may also cause headaches, vomiting, or abdominal pain. So what to do if you are experiencing a pesticide-related emergency, such as trouble breathing, please contact 911. It is important that you get help from a local hospital or health provider as soon as possible. Please let the health provider know that you may have been exposed to a pesticide. They are required by law to report that. If possible, take a picture of the pesticide container or label. The National Pesticide Information Center, NPIC, is a helpful resource for pesticide health impacts. Pesticide, also poison control, is useful for free immediate first aid information and advice what to do. They are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Interpretation services are available. So reporting pesticide incidents, please contact the Kern County Ag Commissioner's office. This is their number and email. If you don't live in Kern, you can contact the number below that. That'll connect you to your local county ag commissioner. It's important to report all pesticide incidents because all reports submitted to the CAC are investigated to see if any laws or regulations are violated and to determine whether the illness is related to a pesticide exposure. So the next steps for DPR, all measured air concentration is available to the public via DPR's Pesticide Air Monitoring Results Database, or PAMR. The database is published every quarter. DPR uses this data to assess potential health risks, develop measures to mitigate risk, and measure the effectiveness of regulatory requirements. DPR publishes air monitoring reports yearly, presents results at public meetings yearly. DPR will continue with community engagement and keep the community informed of regulations and developments that are relevant to the community beyond monitoring data. And DPR plans on continuing in Shafter weekly. So that's the end of my slide, and it's time for any questions and concerns.
Great, thank you. I see Bianca, you have your hand raised. Go ahead.
If the monitoring Shafter has detected those number of pesticides, not in a high level, but detected, does that mean that the adjacent fields or the fields around, there's been a drift to the campus because the monitor is in a campus setting? Have they informed the school so they can inform the parents, or to even clean the playground, because I know that there's a playground nearby? This is alarming. Drift is illegal, and if there's detection, that means that there's drift. Is DPR going to do anything about it? Or what is the next step that DPR will be doing with these detections?
Go ahead, Aniela. I see that you mute yourself.
Oh, no, you go ahead. You go ahead. I'm sorry, I didn't see you here, so I wasn't sure if you were here.
Hi, Bianca. I think I can take this question. Your voice was breaking, so I heard that you were concerned about the drift. Can you please repeat your question one more time?
So if there's some detection happening in this monitor, does that mean that there's some drift happening in the site? And in that site is actually in an elementary school. Has DPR done their outreach to talk to the school to inform them that there is a potential drift so they can take care of their students, and also make sure that anything that children could be in harm or probably have a potential contamination, like the playground and things like that, or the balls that they play with, or after school sports. Has DPR informed the schools or the parents?
Bianca, I believe you are talking about the drift where we have and county ag commission have program for swab sampling. This is the air monitoring and it's for the ambient air. And then when Jimmy was talking about it, we are looking for the concentration of the pesticide in the air. It's not a drift on a surface that which will happen. If anything happens, there will be a procedure for that one. So here we're talking about as Jimmy mentioned, a chronic consideration, taking the measurement on a weekly basis to see what's happening in the community and mainly what's happening in the state side. So those two are a very different concept and procedure. So those are not a swab sampling. This is the air sample that we collect from either canister or to the sorbent tubes.
Question in the chat. Has a cumulative cancer risk been calculated for exposure to the different pesticides that the monitor picks up?
We do an in-depth analysis of all the pesticide, and we have a annual report that we report all of this information, including the cumulative effect in our report. I believe I can find a link from our website and put it in the chat while we are in this meeting. So the answer is yes, we have all of those information.
Wonderful, thank you. Would you happen to have at hand what the cumulative cancer risk per million is in Shafter?
Can you please repeat that one? I didn't get that question.
Yeah, the cumulative cancer risk for all of the pesticides, is that something that you have at hand for Shafter? Because I know it's a long report.
Yes, I can put the link and I can put the page for the Shafter as well.
Wonderful, thank you.
Of course.
Other questions for DPR? And I know some of you also attended the Arvin Lamont CSC's pesticide subcommittee. So if there's anything that came up there that you wanted to ask questions about, or anything that is connected here, feel free to also share that. While people are thinking of questions, in one of the last slides, it said that the data is available online, and I know that there's going to be a link to the report online, and if it's handy, if somebody could put the link to where all that we could find that data in the chat too, that I think might be helpful.
We will do it right now.
Thank you.
If you have any questions and concerns, you can contact my supervisor, Daniela or Mazir, or you can contact our branch chief, Min. These are their contact informations in case anybody wants them.
Thank you. Anything else for DPR? Looking in the chat. Looking for hands raised. And the link for the reports has just been put in the chat. So thank you, Mazir.
And Diana, this is Stephanie. If I could quickly just add a comment in that, I know that a lot of folks recognize, the group that we have here from DPR and that they are just committed partners to this process. So if you all continue to have any questions or want the DPR team to come back with any other, topics, we're happy to have them at an upcoming meeting.
Thank you. I want to make sure no last questions before we move on. I know this is a topic with there's a lot that everybody likes to hear about, but I don't see anything else in the chat or anybody raising their hand. So I think we could move on to the standing updates, and thank you so much, DPR, for presenting.
Thanks to Jimmy. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're now going to switch to our agenda item that is the standing updates. And today we're going to start off with an update from the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, about their Community Air Protection Program evaluation. Their update is going to be a little bit longer than our normal updates because it's a new program and they would like to get your input. So it's going to be about 15 minutes, and then there's a time at the end for your feedback and questions. So I'm going to pass it to CARB for their sharing.
Hi, everyone. This is Brian from CARB. It's good to see you all again. And I'm going to really quickly pass it over to Nicole because we're in the 5th year of the program. We decided it was a really good time for CARB to step back and get a third-party evaluator to just do an evaluation of the Community Air Protection Program, see what's working, what isn't, lessons learned, and how we can improve moving forward. So Nicole, go ahead, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Brian. I believe I had sent over some slides, so I'm not sure if you need me to share my screen or if you have them kind of already.
Hi, Nicole. If you feel comfortable, you can go ahead and share your slides and we can put the link to it in the chat.
Okay. See, give me a second. And it would be probably like preferred to do the one with the English and Spanish on both slides, right? Or on the slide, I mean.
Yes, Nicole, thanks.
Okay. So hopefully you can see the screen now.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Nicole Bruns. I am the project lead for this evaluation of the Community Air Protection Program established under AB617. So tonight I will just kind of talk you through a little bit of the background on this evaluation and some action items and kind of next steps from the CSC. I have to scroll through. So why are we evaluating the program? We are beginning the 6th year of implementing the Community Air Protection Program, and it is critical during this time to uplift lessons learned and assess impacts of the program. We have committed this in the Blueprint 2.0, as you can see on the slide, identified by Goal 5. The findings and learnings from this contract will identify lessons learned, unanticipated benefits, and outline key barriers to be addressed for future implementation of this program across more communities throughout the state of California. And then the recommendations from this evaluation will also be applied to the ongoing work of CARB and all the air districts and all pathways established in this Blueprint 2.0. So how does this evaluation build on prior studies? We will be summarizing and looking at past evaluative efforts, such as the UC Davis evaluation and how this evaluation can build upon that one without duplicating efforts, as well as utilizing best practices from other evaluations, such as the Transformative Climate Communities Program and other environmental justice place-based efforts that will hopefully add value and, again, just kind of identify best practices. We'll be looking at 4 different types of evaluation metrics, such as baseline evaluation, which will be looking at past studies and analysis of primary source data, process evaluation, which will distill lessons learned, outcome evaluation, which will be looking at the extent to which SERP goals and objectives were met and achieved. And then also be piloting short and intermediate impact evaluation, which will be looking at like emission trends or exposure, reduction, and economic benefits, to name a few. All of these evaluation metrics will then help lend toward providing an overarching recommendation. So how does this differ from past evaluation efforts? We'll be focusing again on the initial first year selected communities and their progress over the last 5 years or 5 years. We will also be creating a design team, which I'll get a little bit more into later on. And then we will also be learning from experiences, getting direct community involvement that will hopefully help enhance the program, and then tailor that to the local needs of the community. And then also this evaluation will hopefully help provide results that will shape statewide implementation, such as providing better guidance, program improvements, and new ways of working with communities for, again, statewide implementation. And so then, on the screen, as you can see, the focus will be outcomes and processes, improvements over time, and then a possible impact evaluation could be looking at emission reduction analysis. This evaluation will hopefully help answer a few overarching questions, such as how is the Community Air Protection Program advanced equity? What strengths of the program should be replicated? How shortcomings should be addressed? How evaluation can be incorporated as a central feature in the CAP or the program to continuously improve this program. The evaluation is a comprehensive look at processes, results, strengths, and challenges of working together to realize the goals, actions, and targets set forth in the SERPs of the communities. That will be the focus of this evaluation. It will also include an assessment of the overall impacts of the program that go beyond SERP commitments, as well as recommendations for incorporating the evaluation into the program going forward. And then on this screen, through this evaluation effort, there will be engagement. We will be establishing a design team of up to 11 members from the Air District, CSC, and CARB. This design team will help come to a consensus on the goals and objectives of the evaluation that will feed into the development of the draft evaluation framework. The focus will be on 5 communities from the first year of selection. This will ensure appropriate amount of depth and research per community, and we are also looking to do just 1 community per air district. As you can see on this slide, we will be looking at eligible communities based on being year 5 communities or part of the first year of selection. Each community is a SERP, and in some cases there are a few that are camps, which camp is a community air monitoring program. Also, these communities that are shown on the screen are also eligible for the process, outcome, and preliminary impact evaluation metrics that I had mentioned earlier. And then, as you can see under each community, there is an individual pollution type or source or area that has been identified as an area of concern within the community. For instance, within Shafter, we've highlighted like rural, and through this evaluation, we are anticipating selecting communities that can highlight a single pollution type or area of concern, so that way there is a well-rounded evaluation and can target, different concerns for the 5 communities that we have shown. So a little bit more about this contract. There is an allotted budget of $625,000. And there will be additional funds set aside for community compensation. A tentative timeline starting probably at the end of April, this April 2024, and up until April 2027. So it is a 3-year contract. And some of the program partners will be UC Berkeley, University of Southern California Equity Research Institute, UC Santa Cruz, and San Diego State University. And now I'll go over some of the timeline for this contract. So in year 1, we'll be establishing the design team. Again, that'll be up to 11 members. We will be summarizing past evaluative efforts and compiling data for this and resources for this contract. In year 2, we will develop an evaluation work plan, which will include at least 5 of the year 2018 or year 1 selected communities with input from the design team for evaluation. And we will also be reviewing documents, the blueprint, and other reports such as annual or statutes, annual reports for the camps or SERPs. And then we will be developing an assessment plan. During this year, we will also be engaging focus communities. There will be at least 2 meetings with each of the communities selected for evaluation. During this time, we'll be seeking input on the goals and objectives for that SERP. We will be also establishing shared understanding of the evaluation metrics, and then conducting focus groups and conducting surveys to collect additional information. During these focus groups, compensation will be provided. Into the final year, year 3, we will be working on the field work and evaluation. We will be compiling the information from the baseline evaluation, process evaluation, outcome evaluation, and the pilot impact evaluation to provide the final report. That will include the overarching recommendations. This final report will be shared with the design team and the communities that participated in the evaluation. And then we will incorporate feedback from the design team and the community to develop 2 final reports. One that will be a short version for the broad audience in mind, and then another longer version geared towards those who are engaging at a technical level. And that will be happening in year 3 for the final report. So some action items for the CSC. Prepare any questions you might have for this evaluation or this contract. Please let us know your interest in participating. And please nominate a member for the design team. Again, just to kind of recap the design team, it's up to 11 members with about 6 seats reserved for the CSC, and then the remaining 5 for Air District or CARB. And we want at least 6 for the CSC. So if there ends up being more interest, the remaining 5, we can be a little bit more flexible with those. Compensation will be provided. And then in year 1, there will be up to 3 meetings, which was the goal of those is to provide feedback on the draft materials for this evaluation framework. And then next steps following this meeting is, again, formulating the design team. So it's really important that, working within the CSC to nominate at least 1 individual for the design team. We will also be reviewing and compiling community-specific info and having that accessible for the design team nominees and the process going forward. We'll have a project kickoff, and then we'll get to begin work. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. Again, my name is Nicole Bruns. I'm the lead for this program evaluation. My email is on the screen, but I can gladly put it in the chat so that way it's there if a question comes up later on. And yeah, I look forward to meeting with you all again. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. And I can check the chat right now to see if there's any questions.
So folks could raise their hand also if they have questions for Nicole.
Okay, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. But if I missed
Nicole,
any.
Can you, I think it's back 2 slides, you talked about nominating people.
Yes.
Yes, can you talk a little bit about how somebody would either express their interest in participating or nominate a member for the design team?
Yeah, so what we've met with a few other CSCs, a few that you had seen on a previous slide. And so far, we've had just like direct interest from CSC members. We are looking for members to be from the CSC to be on this design team that have been from the start of, basically from when the CERT began and over the 5 years. That's kind of one of the main criterias, but it's also dependent on who is interested at the CSC. And the process, right now it's kind of just, a few people have thrown their hat or their name into the hat essentially. And in some cases we've had one person, so and that makes it a little bit easier because we haven't quite dealt with like more than one person being interested, if that makes sense from a CSC. But I would seek guidance from you all as well if you end up having a lot of interest from CSC members. We can definitely talk through, a nomination protocol with you all to narrow it down. And again, as you can see, there's going to be 5 communities, but there's 6 seats, or at least 6 seats for CSC members. So if there is more than one person interested in your committee, there could be at least 2 people from one CSC. And then if it works out to be, there's a lot of interest, the remaining 5 out of that 11, it can be flexible. Hopefully that answers your question. And then I see your hand raised, Stephanie.
Thanks, Nicole. I have a question. I know that you kind of in the presentation talked about the anticipated timeline being April. If CSC members are like pondering if they want to get involved, is there a deadline of when they should reach out to you?
Let's see. So within the contract will hopefully be fully executed at the end of this month. And then once it's fully executed, about within 60 days is when we want to have like the project kickoff. So around June is when we would likely have the initial project kickoff and hopefully have design team members nominated by then. So there's a little bit of time. I know Shondon is also from CARB is on this call, so if there's any like additional details I might be missing for that, please.
No, I think Nicole, you got it. Yeah, hi. Yeah, I'm Chandan Miss. I'm a manager here in the Office of Community Air Protection. But yeah, Stephanie, I think Nicole is spot on. Like, within maybe like next month or 2, if you can let us know. And maybe like if you want to like, for example, like insert like, nomination of a design team member, maybe at like a subsequent CSC, you can also approach it that way. Then you can have like your internal discussion or your discussion like, with the CSC at the next meeting. And Nicole and I are more than happy to come like even like next time and, be on a standby if there are any questions. But, if you want to like sort of insert this as an agenda item and, think about the process or something. So, yeah.
Shell, you have your hand raised.
Yes, so they're looking for 6 seats from CSC. They're looking for 1 person from our CSC group and then 1 from each other ones. And there may, if we had 2 people interested, there may be an extra seat. You're not looking for 6 people from our CSC. Is that correct?
Yeah, so collectively it'll be out of the 5 communities, a team of 11 people. Just like, yeah, so the first part that you said, it would be 1 to 2 from the CSC. So for instance, 1 to 2 from here from Shafter, and then 1 from like the Bay Area, 1 from South Coast or down in LA. So that way it's kind of widespread throughout, so we can have, again, like a more well-rounded evaluation. So it won't be like 6 total from Shafter.
Thank you.
Questions about the evaluation?
Okay, so I see in the chat 5 members interested in joining. Just gonna quickly write down your name so that way. And like Shandon mentioned, we can always meet again. We can set up just kind of like another meeting outside of the CSC to discuss this design team a little bit more in depth, and like how the nominations, how that could look like, and work with you. And then let's see.
Maybe go to that last slide you had with your contact information on it. Yes, so if people have questions or want to get in contact with you, that's the information.
Yes.
Other questions for Nicole? Great, well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And Nicole's email is also now in the chat too, if that's easier for you.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Are there other agencies that would like to share an update at this point? Go for it, Steph.
Thanks, Diana. And maybe I'll just quickly check in with Brian and also Mike. Are there any other CARB updates that you all wanted to share?
You know, I can put in the chat since we have a little time. I think the whole CSC received a notice about our community air protection incentive guidelines being updated. And so I'm just going to reshare the draft update, and in mid-April, we should have that finalized. So that's the main thing. And I guess I could take a quick second to introduce Mike, because I'm not sure if he's met the group.
Oh my gosh,
Mike,
no.
Mike Alves, he's a new staff member at CAR. We're super excited to have him. And he will be tracking the Shafter process moving forward with us all. So yeah, Mike, if you want to take a few seconds to introduce yourself to the group.
Hi, everyone. Nice to meet you all over Zoom. I hope to meet you all in person as well eventually. My name is Mike, and yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Brian. If anyone has any, so Mike is your new Shafter liaison. And so if you have any questions, I wonder, Mike, if you could pop your email into the chat for folks to reach out if they have any questions.
I'll do that. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome, Mike. I have a quick update from the district side as well. I wanted to make sure we had time for all these other great updates that we had in the meeting, but I wanted to quickly share some exciting news that there are 2 very resident-oriented measures that we've kind of been working towards and have been really excited to get to the point that the project plans for the passenger vehicle repair and passenger vehicle replace programs have been approved by CARB. And so kind of following that approval, we did need to work with Valley Clean Air Now, or Valley CAN, who kind of does the implementation of both of those programs to get under contract. But once that is underway, we'll be able to open both of those programs. And so we're hoping kind of in the next few weeks here. And so I think in the next meeting, we'll definitely bring that a bigger update and kind of work with you all on just program outreach and implementation. So we're just really excited to have even more programs open up that residents can apply to in the community. That was my quick district update. Happy to take any questions.
Steph, for about any of the updates?
I don't see anything, so I'll pass back to you, Diana.
Great, thank you. Well, this takes us to the last part of our agenda, which is the wrap up and talking about all of our next steps. Thank you again for being here. So much appreciate your time and all of the energy and that you bring to these meetings and the great questions that you had today. So thank you very much. I'd like to share a few next steps, and I'm gonna share my screen to do that. Can you all see my screen? Great. Okay. So the next meeting that we're going to have, the next CSC meeting, is a month from today on May 13th via Zoom. And before that, a week from today, we're going to have our next agenda setting meeting. So that's going to be on April 15th at 4 p.m. via Zoom. And we always appreciate people coming to the agenda setting meetings to hear your suggestions about what you think would be helpful for the group to hear about. And how you want to spend the time. These are your meetings, and so we really appreciate everybody who comes to the agenda setting meetings to let us know what would be most helpful for you to hear. So you're all invited to that next week. Some topics that have been suggested for future meetings that you could kind of think about as you're thinking about what would be helpful for next meeting is a district enforcement efforts was one thing that has been brought up before, and then also a demo of the AQ View, that's CARB's community-focused air quality data tool. So those are some things that have been brought up before that we'll probably talk about at the agenda setting meeting. We have a couple of minutes now, actually, too. So if there's anything that folks think of right now that would be a thing that they'd want to talk about for next time, you're welcome to put it in the chat or raise your hand or just unmute and share those. And John.
Yeah, I may have missed this, but just in case it wasn't brought up, the Green Barrier Program, oleanders have been planted along Laredo Highway from Cherry Avenue to the airport, and oleanders were planted along Burbank from Santa Fe Way almost to Highway 43. But an interesting thing may have happened. We got word yesterday that it looked like someone stole the oleanders off of the street on Burbank. So if any of you know anything about where the missing oleander bushes went, we'd like to know. So they're still on Lerdo. I mean, they're there. I don't know why someone would steal planted oleanders, but anyway, we're trying to advance the Green Barrier Program.
Thank you for that update, John, and I hope you find the missing oleanders.
Unusual for sure.
Yeah.
And discouraging if it's true.
Yeah. Any other suggestions at this time for things to talk about at the next meeting? You could also always reach out to the Air District, or you could reach out to Vanessa and me at Harder & Company. All of our contact information is at the bottom of that slide. And we're always happy to hear what agenda items you would like to talk about. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and pass it to Vanessa to talk about the action items. Fingers crossed that Vanessa's audio is working. If not, we'll figure it out as we did before. And so while we're getting those up, again, like at the beginning of the meeting, we share action items and what the follow-up has been on those. At the end of the meeting, we share the action items that we have recorded during the meeting. We are writing them down as people are talking, and so one of the goals of sharing them with you all at the end of the meeting is to make sure that we recorded them right and that we understood the question that you had or the request that you had. So I'm going to pass it to Vanessa to go through those.
Thanks, Diana. This is Vanessa. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I will go ahead and share the items that we've written down for today. The first one is check if the action item from the action item tracker refers to vegetative barriers or urban greening, and the party responsible for that is the Air District. Second item, the Air District will send copies of the CERT presentation to residents who request them. For the third item, we have Kern County Public Works team will share resident suggestions for where to add paving with Yolanda, also from Kern County Public Works. And lastly, the Air District will reach out to Yolanda and team at Kern County Public Works to see what their capacity to implement paving suggestions is like. Are there any addition? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Stephanie.
Vanessa, this is Stephanie. And also, can you add on there that we will follow up with John and the whole wonderful team so that we can bring an update about vegetative barriers. I know this was a brief update, but I think definitely, I know this is a high priority measure, so we can plan to work with the wonderful team to bring a more substantial update at an upcoming meeting.
Noted, thank you.
Edits to the action items or other action items that you suggested that aren't on here? John, I'm assuming your hand up is from before, but if you have another comment.
No, it was before. I'm sorry.
Okay. No, that's okay.
Take it down. Sorry.
Any other questions about or changes to the action items? Chat also. I don't see any. So I think I'm going to share my screen again for our public comment. So our last item today is asking for public comment. So if there's anybody who would like to make a comment from the public, the instructions on how to do that are listed here. And we know that community and public comment is a really important, these are open meetings. And so if anybody has a comment that they'd like to make at this time, I'm going to pause for a couple minutes to make sure that anybody who wants to make a comment has a chance to do that. And Vanessa, are you able to look at the YouTube live to see if there's any comments or questions there?
Yes, this is Vanessa. I can confirm that there aren't any comments on YouTube Live.
Great. Looking in the chat. And of course, you could always reach out to the Air District or Harder and Company if you have any comments that that you think of later on after today. I'm going to stop sharing. And thank you all again for a wonderful meeting, and looking at your square, Stephanie, to see if you have any closing remarks that you'd like to make.
Thanks, Diana. I just wanted to thank everyone for being here tonight, for, of course, your commitment to this process and for providing your great comments and questions. Maybe I'll just take a second if we have a moment. Something I so appreciated about the in-person is that we had a co-host at the last in-person meeting. So I'll just put a plug that if you have any interest in helping to support the meetings in a co-host role, we so encourage it. And we think those meetings, just love having meetings with co-hosts. So I'll just leave it at that and look forward to next month's meeting and also the agenda setting, which is next Monday.
Another plug for co-hosts. We're happy to work with you. If you want to be a co-host and don't know what that means or don't know how to do it or want to practice, any of us are happy to help you do that. We're also happy to let you do it. Like, we don't have to help you if you don't need it. But don't let like the lack of not knowing what it is hold you back if you're interested in being a co-host. I agree. That was special. Well, thank you again, everybody. I'm always energized by these meetings and really inspired by all of your commitment to your community. So thank you very much. And I hope you have a very wonderful evening.
Thank you, everyone.